Nigerian filmmaker and co-founder of the Abuah Film Festival in Ghana, Onuora Abuah, who alongside his festival co-founder is looking to energize African cinema. Take a look.
Cinema is the ultimate mirror of a people's soul, but for over a century, the global film structure has kept black storytellers systematically disempowered, relegated to the margins of distribution and infrastructure owned by others. True power is narrative sovereignty, and it is exactly this radical reclamation of the lens that birthed the Abuah Film Festival, a cinematic movement standing unapologetically for black power and black liberation.
I'm a filmmaker, so I spent the last almost 20 years working in film, firstly as an actor. And in the process of making some of my films, I started traveling around Africa, FESPACO Film Festival, Luxor, and various other avenues for African film. And I realized that the Nigerian scene is almost excluded from the wider African cinema world. And so I had a film called Mona, which came out in 2015, and I went to Ghana at the Institute of African Studies of Ghana, where we screened the film for students for 2 days. So the film festival idea came about when I came to screen the film at University of Ghana Institute of African Studies, where the co-founder of Abibitumi is. Abibitumi stands for Black Power.
That disconnect is happening at a time when the medium itself is facing an existential crisis. As the digital age accelerates, traditional feature films are slightly losing the battle for audience attention. Audiences are being heavily conditioned for short, fast consumption. For filmmakers, trying to tell deep, layered historical and systemic Pan-African stories, this shrinking attention span is a major hurdle.
The majority of us spend hours and hours watching short TikTok videos, Instagram videos, and so on. But there is still a need for connectivity. People want to feel connected to something. Well, I think when you look at every field when it comes to entertainment, black people dominate on the surface. So it's not just about Africans, black people in general. We tend to dominate. The issue is behind the scenes. From the economic side, we don't really control too much. Now, even with things like YouTube and so on, there's an element of some control, but ultimately the platform is not our own. So it starts really at the infant stage, is understanding what type of African do we want to be, and by default, what kind of images do we want to see of ourselves. So what we're doing with the film festival, we partnered up with the University of UNIMAC, which is their film institute in Ghana. And what we do is we take a crop of filmmakers, take some of their films and show them to the world. In fact, last year, some of the best films that we had were from the University of Ghana, very innovative, creative films. Well, I think first things first, I think the whole black world in general has a similar problem. Nigeria's is more peculiar because we seem to be the only industry, and I've traveled all across the continent and seen a lot of the filmmakers that they revere and they respect. We seem to be the only country in the continent that, at least in the generation just gone, if you want to call it that, had a lot of people who were not filmmakers, they were not artists making films. These are ex-bankers, lawyers, who see an opportunity to star in something or direct something and get money and so on. And you see how that's resulted in Netflix and Amazon leaving, because they're just like, the quality doesn't seem to be improving. So I think artistry needs to come back into our filmmaking. Often when I travel to these film festivals, I'm the only Nigerian film. In fact, I won an award at the Luxor African Film Festival a few years ago. It was me, and then a student film was won by a Nigerian based in the US. And there was no coverage whatsoever from Nigeria. There were no Nigerian press, no Nigerian jury members. In fact, I think the one that was invited, I won't say his name, refused to come. So there's a habit here where we feel like Nollywood and America, UK is the most important thing in the world. And the rest of the continent is irrelevant. Whereas as black people, you're not going to advance unless you recognize that we have the same common oppressor, for lack of a better word, and try and find a way to improve our culture, share our culture, and see what similarities we have rather than differences.
The antidote to a fractured industry at home and a disempowering landscape abroad.
If you see, if we in Nigeria, I mean, Nigeria is a good example. You know, they are talking of Kanye wood, Asaba wood, all this wood, everything is different woods, right? So even then we find ways to differentiate ourselves from other people. And that in itself creates a larger problem, because if you're constantly dividing into small groups, there's no room for you to come together and create something. Platform-wise, I think we can create platforms, there's no doubt. I mean, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they created Iroko TV to solve a problem. Now, where it's gone is a different case, but the intention was there. And then the outsiders came in, and ultimately they made offers that we couldn't refuse. And so now we only look to them. I think it actually is a good thing when these platforms like Netflix and Prime leave, because it forces us to think about how do we solve this problem ourselves. But then also we have a world where this generation is constantly only focused on 60-second, 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute videos. They're not really interested in long form. So as we're also thinking about solutions, we also have to try and find ways to evolve and meet the next generation where they are. You know, so for me, I think it's one thing to rely on government. It's another thing to look at yourself and say, what am I doing? And so in my case, I'm a Nigerian. I'm the director of a film festival in Ghana and a conference in Ghana. I don't have any other qualification other than they respect me as a filmmaker, right? And that should really be how we should look at cinema. Cinema is an art form which, in its purest sense, can inspire everybody. Everybody has a movie that either they go back and watch it or it reminds them of something. And I think when we recognize that this is something that we all have, we also have to think about, okay, what is that image that it reminds us of? Is it about something that promotes me and my people? Or is it about something that negates me and my people? You know, and I think, but this is a wider conversation, my dear brother. This is about us psychologically re-Africanizing. This is not a question about us just simply, making films. This is about us changing our mind frame and ensuring that we realize who we are, when we look in the mirror.
So this year, the festival plans to return with a fierce expanded mandate.
As far as last year, we had viewers from all around the world taking part. We had people visiting. We've had the support of some of the top talent in Ghana. We had Ajete Anang, who is the equivalent of we call him RMD in Ghana. We had Amake Abebrese, who is a big star. She starred in Beast of No Nation with Idris Elba. So these are ambassadors for this year. And last year also we had Abraham Haile Biru. He's, again, for viewers who don't know African film and classic African films, he made a movie called Abuah, Ethiopian filmmaker. So he was the president of our jury last year. So in terms of talent, we're attracting the very, very best. This year, we're looking to partner with the National Theatre of Ghana. So we'll host screenings as well as workshops there for student filmmakers, young students in general. We hope that it's going to be even bigger than ever. And I should just also point out that the film festival and the conference are part of two events that are part of an organization called DOOR, which stands for Decade of Our Repatriation. Decade of Our Repatriation is essentially an incentive for, you've heard of Dirty December, right? Dirty December, this year of return thing, right? So this all began in about 2019, where they made this whole, it's been 400 years since African people were enslaved and taken out of the continent. And so it made a lot of people want to come back to Ghana. But they were coming back in December, spending money and going back. So Decade of Our Repatriation is something which is endorsed by the Office of the President of Ghana. And the idea is that don't just come back, invest. Some are building movie studios, some are building sustainable housing, fashion lines, and so on. So the idea is that there's land available, there's the resources available, come and invest, and let's move forward. So we are two events that are part of DOOR. We also have a fashion show, which we do as part of the conference, and we're looking to partner with some other can't really say just yet. We're still finalizing, but some other organizations too.
Reclaiming the past, rewriting the present, and seizing the future of the black screen. The Abibitumi Abibifaode Film Festival kicks off this October.